Welcome to TheoryHubz. Today we will be sharing 3 true horror stories about scuba diving that will make you hold your breath. Hey TheoryHubz, I want to share a terrifying experience that shook me to my core and reminded me just how quickly a dive can turn into a life-threatening situation. This happened in a section of Devil's Eye in Florida, known among seasoned divers as the Birthing Canal, because of its notoriously tight squeezes. I'd heard stories about the Birthing Canal, of its narrow, twisting passages that you have to literally exhale to squeeze through. Being an experienced diver, I was confident, maybe too confident, and that's probably what led me to underestimate the dangers. I've done small spaces before, but had no idea what I was in for. The dive started off well enough, the familiar cool embrace of the water around me as I descended into the cave. Checked everything. Oxygen looked good and full. I began my descent towards the beginning of the cave. There it was. This was way smaller than I had imagined it would be, but others bigger than me had made it through, so I was good to go. As I entered the Birthing Canal, the tight walls immediately closed in around me. The passage was narrow, oppressively so, forcing me to wiggle through with minimal clearance. The overhead environment meant no quick ascents to safety, and the deeper I went, the tighter the space became. I was worried a rock may cut a tube, or worse, my scuba tank. I moved through this small space as slowly as could. The only sounds were those of my tank scraping up against the cavern walls. About halfway through, the real nightmare began. As I tried to maneuver through an exceptionally narrow section, my tank snagged on a jagged outcrop. I tugged gently, but the more I moved, the more I seemed to wedge myself into the crevice. Panic didn't set in. It crashed into me like a wave. I was in full freak-out mode, and I knew I needed to stay calm, but I was alone. Finally sinking in that I was stuck, alone in the darkness with rock pressing against my chest and back, limiting my movements and my breaths. The sensation of being trapped underwater is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Imagine not being able to flip over, turn around, just pure panic of being unmovable 150 feet from the surface, and 50 feet from the entrance of the canal. I tried scooting back, but every attempt to free myself only made things worse. I could barely move. I couldn't go forward, and there was absolutely no way to back out. The pressure on my chest was immense, making each breath a laborious task. I watched my air supply dwindling on my gauge, each minute passing with the needle inching closer to empty. The fear of dying there, in that cold, dark, narrow passage, began to overpower my thoughts. The silence of the cave was deafening. Every heartbeat sounded like a drum in my ears, and my breathing was so loud, it seemed to echo off the cave walls. My mind raced. Thoughts of my family, the things I'd left unsaid, the people I'd never see again if I didn't make it out. It was torture, not just physically, but mentally. The isolation was complete, and in that moment, I felt a kind of despair I've never known. Time seemed to distort. It could have been minutes or hours. I honestly couldn't tell. My air was critically low, and I was preparing myself for the end when suddenly, a light appeared. Another diver, exploring a known route, had accidentally stumbled upon me. Seeing my situation, they quickly assessed that my tank was caught and began to work to free me. The process was agonizingly slow, and every second was a battle against my depleting oxygen. When I finally felt the pull that freed me, it was like being reborn. We had to ascend much faster than safe protocols recommend because I was nearly out of air. The relief of making it out was short-lived, as the symptoms of decompression sickness hit me hard the moment we reached the surface. The pain was excruciating, radiating through my joints and back, a stark reminder of our rapid escape. But the physical pain couldn't compare to the psychological scars the experience left. I've been diving for years, but nothing could have prepared me for the terror of being trapped like that. This experience has profoundly changed how I view diving. I learned that no matter your level of experience, the water always deserves respect. And maybe, just maybe, some places aren't meant to be explored. Stay safe out there, respect your limits, and never underestimate the power of nature to humble you in the most terrifying ways. I've always been an adventure seeker, thrilled by the prospects of new experiences and exhilarating moments. That's what led me to book a solo trip on a Caribbean cruise with a highlight stop in Mexico for an offshore scuba diving excursion to a famous shipwreck. What unfolded during this excursion was beyond anything I could have ever imagined, turning what was meant to be the pinnacle of my trip into a nightmarish ordeal that still haunts me. The morning was picturesque, with clear skies and a calm sea as we left the cruise ship for our diving spot. Excitement bubbled within me as our small group, equipped with scuba gear, listened intently to the dive master's briefing. However, as we approached the dive site, I noticed the distant horizon darkening ominously, a stark contrast to the morning's serenity. The sea beneath us matched our descent. As we went deeper, it grew darker and more foreboding. As we reached the wreck, the current unexpectedly strengthened. It tugged at my fins and gear with surprising ferocity, making it difficult to stay with the group. I struggled, flapping my fins vigorously against the current. But within moments, I found myself being swept away, isolated from the others. I tried to signal to them, but they were too focused on the wreck to notice my plight. In a panic, I surfaced, hoping to catch the dive boat's attention. The transformation in weather was swift and brutal. The once calm sea was now a churning expanse of dark, angry waves. Clouds rolled in rapidly, enveloping the sky in a menacing blanket of gray. My heart sank as I realized the dive boat was nowhere in sight. They had moved to shelter from the upcoming storm, leaving me behind. Alone, the vastness of the ocean seemed to engulf me. The waves tossed me like a leaf in the wind, each crest threatening to pull me under. I blew my whistle frantically and waved my arms, but my efforts were swallowed by the roaring wind and crashing waves. As the storm hit full force, rain slashed at my face, each drop a needle against my skin. Thunder boomed overhead, a terrifying soundtrack to my desperation. Hours dragged on as I floated helplessly, each minute a battle against the rising panic and encroaching hypothermia. The sky turned from gray to black, night falling like a curtain, leaving me in pitch darkness amidst the tempest. Lightning occasionally illuminated the raging sea, each flash a stark reminder of my vulnerability and isolation. My thoughts spiraled into terror, imagining the creatures lurking below, drawn to my flailing limbs. The primal fear of being forgotten in the middle of an indifferent ocean overwhelmed me. My mind raced with thoughts of my family, their faces a painful reminder of all I stood to lose. I wondered if they would ever know what happened to me, or if the sea would keep its cold, dark secret forever. By some miracle, as I neared the brink of utter despair and exhaustion, a faint light pierced the darkness. A small tugboat, making its way back to the port after the storm, spotted the unusual sight of my bobbing head in the water. The fisherman aboard acted swiftly, pulling me from the clutches of the sea into the safety of his boat. My body was numb, my spirit broken, as he wrapped me in blankets and radioed for help. The relief of rescue was short-lived when I learned that my cruise ship had long since departed, taking all my belongings with it. Stranded, soaked, and shaken, I was left at the mercy of the local authorities, who helped me contact the cruise line to arrange a flight to the next port. This harrowing experience has left me with a deep, unsettling fear of the ocean, a stark contrast to the love I once held. It's a reminder of how quickly beauty can turn to terror, and how easily adventure can become misfortune. In the dense, humid jungles of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, my partner Sarah and I stood on the brink of deep cenote, a gaping sinkhole filled with water and caverns, veiled in shadows and named after the Mayan underworld. Despite the morning's brilliance, a chill breeze wafted up from the dark waters, as if exhaling a cold breath from the depths below. We had ventured far from Canada for this moment, to dive into the depths of these ancient natural wells, believed by the Mayans to be sacred gateways to another realm. We had heard the tales, legends whispered by locals of spirits and gods who lingered in these watery abysses, guarding the secrets of the past. But we were divers, skeptics, drawn by the allure of the unknown and the thrill of discovery, not by superstitions, or so we believed. Our guide, an old Mayan man with deep-set eyes that hinted at untold stories, gave us a stern warning as we prepared our gear. "Respect the cenote," he said, his voice a graveled murmur. "You are not the first to enter, and some who do not return." His ominous words hung heavier than the humid air around us. With a nod, we donned our diving suits, checked our oxygen tanks, and adjusted our headlamps. My heart pounded with a mix of excitement and a gnawing sense of dread as we descended into the cenote's mouth, the sunlight fading behind us, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. As we sank deeper, the walls of the cenote constricted, the water darkening to an impenetrable blue-black. Our lights pierced the murk, revealing the rugged contours of the underwater cave system. Schools of tiny fish, silver against the darkness, darted away from our beams, deeper into the shadows. We navigated through narrow passageways, the silence of the underwater world enveloping us, save for the sound of our own breathing. The walls bore eerie, ancient carvings, faces with hollow eyes and open mouths, as if screaming into the void. My spine chilled with each meter we swam deeper. The water grew colder, more oppressive. Emerging into a large chamber, our lights swept across the vast space, revealing more disturbing scenes etched into the stone. Processions of figures, hands raised as if in supplication or warning, descending towards a monstrous depiction of what seemed like an entrance to a dark underworld. Above the eerie gateway, 2 stone serpents wound skyward, their eyes carved to gleam in the artificial light, watching, guarding. It was then we saw it. A cluster of modern diving gear, much like our own, abandoned on the cavern floor. Tanks, masks, and fins lay scattered, coated with a slimy algae that seemed to pulse faintly with its own life. A cold dread gripped me. The equipment showed no signs of damage, as if simply discarded in a desperate rush. Sarah pointed to the shadows beyond, where the cavern seemed to stretch into further darkness. Our lights revealed a narrow passage, its entrance framed by stone figures. Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, we approached. That's when we heard them, the whispers. Soft at first, then growing louder, the whispers echoed around us in a language not spoken by human tongues. The sounds were guttural, chilling, filled with sorrow and anger. As the whispers intensified, a strong current surged through the passage, pulling at our gear, urging us deeper into the darkness. I grabbed Sarah's hand, signaling a retreat, but our movements stirred up the sediment, clouding our vision. Panic set in as we struggled to find our way back. The whispers grew into wails, the current stronger, as if the cenote itself resisted our escape. Every kick and stroke took immense effort. We were disoriented, lost in a submerged labyrinth. Then, a dim light. Another diver's lamp. No, something otherworldly. A ghostly glow emanating from the passage we had fled. Figures materialized in the murk, spectral and distorted, their elongated limbs reaching towards us with a hunger born of the abyss. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, we found the passage leading upward. We ascended, the spectral whales chasing us, fading only as daylight began to filter through the water. Bursting onto the surface, we gasped for air, the sun's warmth a stark contrast to the cold terror below. Back on land, our guide's face was unreadable as we recounted our ordeal. He simply nodded, as if confirming what he already knew. "Xibalba claims what it wishes," he murmured, turning away to leave us with our relief and our nightmares. Shaken, we left the cenote, the echoes of those otherworldly cries still whispering in our ears. The experience left us forever changed, haunted by the knowledge that beneath the serene beauty of these sacred sites, darker truths lurked, truths not meant to be disturbed.